Hey everyone, it's Holly and I'm here with another Top 5 Wednesday video, and this Top 5 Wednesday is a Goodreads group created by Nisha Laney. I'll leave a link to the Goodreads group down in the description box below. And this week's topic is top 5 mental health / illness books, and I kind of tried to make this like a variety of books, like dealing with like different kinds of mental health. So the first one is Everything Between Us by Mila Ferreira. I really like this book. I think I talk about it fairly often. I've reread it recently, and it's a new adult book, and the main character, or the main female character, suffers from anxiety, and she has like pretty intense anxiety. She won't leave her home, and a lot of the book is about her dealing with that, and I personally really enjoyed the way Mila Ferreira wrote her anxiety and wrote the way people around her interpreted it. So like seeing like negative reactions and positive ones, because I think it's very normal. You know, you have a lot of the whole like her parents are basically like, just get over it. And I think if you have anxiety, then you probably have had somebody tell you that before. And then Crash Into You by Katie McGarry. I feel like this is a weird one to put on here, and I don't think it's like a huge part of the book necessarily, but it was one of the things that really got me into the story, and that is that, again, the main female character, Rachel, she actually suffers like specifically from panic attacks. It was like the first book I had really read that showed a panic attack and specifically like explained like what was happening to her as a panic attack. I don't know, I really liked that, and it showed how you can have a lot of things, you know, like Rachel's wealthy and has this great life, but you can still suffer from like mental health problems, and you can be pretty healthy or normal in other ways but still have struggles, if that makes sense. Then there's Flowers from the Storm by Laura Kinsall, of course. I just really like this book, and this one is a little different because the main character, the character who has a problem, which I can't even remember his name now, and I'm not going to go look it up because I'm just too lazy. He suffers from a stroke, and it ends up really impairing his mental faculties. Like, he can't speak the same way, he can't express himself the same way. I really liked seeing how she showed like his development and his growth, and like he finds a huge outlet in math, which was something he cared about before the stroke, but then after the stroke, math kind of becomes a way for him to like express himself, which I find interesting. And I think one thing that all of these books have in common is that, I mean, I love romance. I don't think that's a surprise, like based on what I read and talk about a lot, but I like, and I guess to some extent find reassuring, the idea that just because you are different or have some sort of mental illness, you can still have love, be loved, and give love. The next one is another historical romance. It's one I just read like a week or two ago, and that's The Madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie by Jennifer Ashley, who I'm like now in love with. I have only read 2 of her books, but I've bought like the next 5 books in this series, and I'm just waiting for them to show up. And I had heard about this book, and you know, people talk about it a lot, and they talk about Ian Mackenzie, and so basically it's a historical romance, like I said, and the hero is autistic. He has Asperger's, but it's a historical, so obviously nobody knows like what's wrong with him. They basically just think he's crazy, and I found it incredibly fascinating. Now, I said this in my written review of the book, I don't know anyone personally with autism, and I'm not that educated in it, which, you know, is my fault. I could become more educated. So, and autism is also like, I do know it's like a huge spectrum, and Asperger's is just a part of that, and so I don't know how realistic this is, but it felt very real to me. I felt like it was done respectfully. I liked how she portrayed Ian's character and like showed how his mental illness can help him and hurt him, and how it interplays with different relationships. And I especially liked having something like that set in a historical setting where people don't understand it even at all. Like, it's still something I think people struggle to understand today, but at least we have a name for it, and at least we don't just like lock people up in insane asylums just because they're different. And the last one is, like, I decided to put both of them together because it's a duology and I read the second one this month, and that's Asking for It and Begging for It by Lila Pace. And this one I feel like is probably the weirdest one to be on here, but I think sometimes it's really easy when you talk about mental health or mental illness and to focus on things like anxiety or autism or OCD or suicide or depression, things like that. And all of those things are important, obviously, and are perfectly valid topics. But I think in a lot of ways every book is about mental health and how people deal with the situations that they're in, if that makes sense. And I think in a lot of ways books are ways for people to experiment and cope and learn how to handle their own mental health. You know, that's definitely the case for me personally. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that makes sense. Sorry for the tangent. So the last one is Asking for It and Begging for It by Lila Pace. And the reason I say that is because this specifically, I'm talking about mental health. And I'm specifically talking about the main character, Vivian, her dealing with her own mental health and her own acceptance of who she is, which I think is a huge part of mental health. So she, throughout the whole series, really, like, almost hates herself, I feel like, because of the things she wants. Since I've talked about these books a lot, but in case you don't know, it follows a woman, and she is a rape survivor, but she also has, like, rape fantasies, and she feels like that's wrong and dirty and all of those things. So it's something she has to deal with, and she goes to therapy, and that's another thing. I like therapy positive books. And she has a healthy relationship with her therapist, and the story is so much about her journey to being accepting of herself and dealing with everything in her life in a mature way and coming to terms with all of that. I am curious to see what books other people do. I mean, like, I'm always curious by Top 5 Wednesday topics, but this especially because I definitely am interested in books that specifically deal with mental health. So I'm curious to see if I get any good recommendations or anything. So thank you so much for watching. Bye!